Road Rants, Episode 9. What do you think would happen if you took half of the problems that you have right now and not only solved and neutralized them, but turned them to your advantage? Use their motion to thrust you toward your goal. Welcome to Road Rants Radio. I'm Frank Sardella, and I'm your host of this show, where I get on my soapbox and rant about stuff that's going to help you expand into your community and expand your profession. Get ready for a bit of tough love and learning. Join me now. Here we are back at Road Rants again, ladies and gentlemen, and I am back in your face and ready with another Road Rant for you. I'm actually quite excited about this one. And I apologize if I'm a little less ranty today because I had to work through something recently. Those of you who know me know this never happens. Those of you who don't, it's something you'll learn about me. But I'm a pretty cool customer when it comes to most of the things that I have to deal with. And when I'm dealing with my audience, with my clients, with my affiliates, with vendors, for the most part, I can be pretty calm about assessing things and then doing what I need to do. And if something occurs that's not great, although I get frustrated like anyone else, I don't tend to show it very often in most contexts. But this morning I had a freaking meltdown. And fortunately, I was all alone. But a couple of people got the brunt of it over text and one over a phone call or whatever. And it wasn't really to lash out at anybody specifically, but I did have a meltdown. And I want to talk to you about that. But it prompted me to think of something really awesome. What's funny is the reason I thought of using it for an episode of Road Rants was the fact that the exact thing that I realized is the exact reason why I should bring this to you on Road Rants. And this is something you can apply in practice, you can apply it in life, you can apply it anywhere. And it served me well. And it regards a new policy that I started last year. And I came up with this policy. I don't remember what was going wrong at the time. Something was going very wrong or just not the way I wanted it to. And I was getting pretty frustrated with it. And I was reacting at the time to whatever it was. And again, I don't even remember what it was at this point. And it really doesn't matter because what really matters is what happened next. I actually got out of this particular situation by not only handling it, but something positive occurred after it. And it really caused me to reflect back and look at what it was that I did. And it took me a little while. Sometimes you have to introspect a little bit and you just have to really try and find out, look, why did this happen? What led up to it? What occurred? How could it have been avoided? But then I thought, how could I have actually made a win out of this particular situation in the first place? And when I look back on it, it hit me all at once. What I had done was I had taken the challenge that came up and I turned it into a challenge to turn it into a net gain. I didn't look at it in terms of how do I put out this fire anymore. What I looked at is how do I take what's burning here and build something huge on this site? That would be sort of a really good analogy of what we're talking about here. Turning a negative into a positive instead of neutralizing it. Think about what you do in everyday practice. When you say, I put out fires all day, think about what you do in your practice, in your life, in your family interactions, in your personal interactions, in an argument you have with somebody, whatever it is that is going on with you, that if you really look at it in how you handle those things, at your very best, when you say, I put out fires, what are you doing but neutralizing the situation? So in other words, you were on a path to do something. You were really intent on doing it. And here comes this thing in from the side, and it basically sidetracks you. Take a look at it. It sidetracks you. Your attention goes off of the goal, the thing that you're trying to do, and it goes on to this other thing. And what is your intention then? It's to handle the problem. What do you mean by handle the problem? You mean neutralize it so it's not blocking you from your goal anymore. Now, that's a perfectly valid thing to do. If you think about it, that's what we have to do when we pursue our goals. When somebody tells you to be obsessed with your goal, I'm not of the obsessed school. I'm of the focused school. Stay focused on your goal and you'll never have to be obsessed about it. But either way, even if you are obsessed with your goal, that you're going to need to neutralize those barriers to getting to the goal. Meaning get around them, get over them, or make them vanish. And really Streamline your path to that goal so you can get there as quickly as possible. But I thought to myself, what if I took the thing that's sidetracking me right now, and instead of neutralizing it, use the motion, almost like some forms of martial arts. What is that martial art? Is it jiu-jitsu or judo, where you're using the strength of your opponent to win the fight, right? You use their strength, their force, and their energy to take them down. Well, I thought, rather than take them down, what about take them with me? How do I turn this into a positive? How do I turn this into something that pushes me toward my goal? So in other words, 180-degree change in vector to a vector that's pointing in the exact same direction as where I'm going. Now, that's a little bit generalized. So this episode is really going to require some deep thought and some introspection on your part. And that's what I want you to do in this episode of Road Rants. I want you to take this and I want you to look at some of the barriers you have. Now, I'm going to give you a little exercise to do because some of you don't even have that goal set or you don't have it clearly defined. So some of you can't recognize the distinction between the barriers that come up and the goal itself. And especially if you don't have a goal, now's a good time to get it. So here's my suggestion before indulging me in my rant today, if you can call it that, because it's not much of a rant at this point. I feel a lot better. I had a brilliant phone call with a very, very good friend of mine, and it ended off really well, and it sort of spawned off of this thing. This was part of me turning the negative into the positive. After my absolute meltdown this morning, you should have seen it. It was pretty ugly. No one was around to see it, actually, but it was pretty ugly. And what happened was, after I sort of got over myself on that part and I had my temper tantrum, I really thought about, I'm like, I need a win here. And it's funny, it was almost automatic that I went, I need a win here. And when I say a win, I need to use the motion of this to turn into something else. And the ensuing phone calls that I made, by the third phone call, it was this lengthy 45-minute call. I got to tell you, I am so pumped. I was like, I got to sit down and do 2 episodes of Road Rants. I'm actually batch recording 2 episodes right now. This is the first of both. You'll see in the next one what I'm going to talk about. But off of that spawned 2 amazing episodes that I can inspire you with. So I'm taking my meltdown today. And again, my meltdown wasn't really the barrier. The barrier was all the things that came to a head to create that level of meltdown in me, which really takes some doing. And it's very rare that it happens to that degree. But how was I able to use that motion from that, what led to that meltdown, and turn it into a win? And what I'm doing right here, right now, is part of it. Now, in applying this, I don't want you to sit down and say, okay, well, let me look at all the negatives in my life and how can I turn them into positives. Now, first of all, if that's what you're going to do, that will help. I mean, it's something. You're doing something toward problems that you're ignoring right now. And yeah, you will definitely get significant gain from that. But the point is that if it's directionless, meaning there's no goal, there's no end game, if you don't have that, then you need to create that. So my suggestion to you is, first, before you introspect on any of this, look at your goal, what your goal is. If it's not clearly defined, and when I say clearly, I mean down to the last detail. Many of you have goals and they're not specific enough. So really look at, what does that look like in great detail, in vivid, living 4K HD color. Do that. Once you have that clearly defined, this is the really brilliant part of it. It becomes your measuring stick for the rest of the activities and issues and situations in your life. What I mean by that is you will be able to decipher or differentiate between goals and problems. The problems are the barriers to getting to the goal. You right now may very well just have this big kettle full of issues, and you don't know which ones are positive and which ones are negative, which ones are goal-oriented and are essential to reaching your goal, and which ones are preventing you from reaching your goal. All of them apparently are preventing you from reaching your goal, but if you haven't clearly defined it first, then you'll never know. So, what I'm recommending that you do is sit down, check yourself on your goal, then sort out all the situations going on in your life. Figure out which ones are steps on the way to the goal and which ones are barriers